Hello, my name is Alden MacDonald. I'm a certified executive chef and full-time instructor here in the Hospitality Leadership Program at Northern Michigan University. Today, we're going to make a shepherd's pie, also known as a cottage pie. A traditional shepherd's pie is made with ground lamb, but today we're going to be making it with ground beef, and it's a super approachable, really beautiful, warm dinner that you can make for the whole family. It's something you can do in one pan with just a little ancillary work, and that's great for a family dinner, and you can cook it right in the pan that you cook your vegetables in. So very streamlined, good family dinner. So the first thing we have here is I do off camera have some potatoes cooking in water with a little bit of salt, and that's going to be making our mashed potatoes to go on top for our crust on our pie. And then in my pan here I have some melted butter. I'm going to turn the heat on here, and the way that we're going to start is we're going to start with our onions and carrots. Now the nice thing about shepherd's pie is there are lots of different combinations that you can do, so don't worry about if you don't have, say, carrots or all these onions, any sort of compilation really of vegetables. Just make sure you have a mix of different vegetables. So I have carrots and onions that I'm going to cook here. Once those start to soften a little bit, I'm going to add some other vegetables that I had in my refrigerator as leftovers. I have some corn that needs to get used up. That'll be great in there. I have some tomatoes that'll add a really good flavor, and a little bit of red onion that was left over from a salad that I'm going to put in there as well. So what I have here is just sauteing here. And then one thing I'm going to do right away with my saute here is I'm going to add some salt and pepper. And the reason I want to add salt and pepper early, especially our salt, is because the salt will help bring some of that moisture out of our vegetables and soften them a little quicker. And then also it will help flavor your dish. Whenever you're building a dish like this, you want to layer the flavors, build the flavors. So we're going to start with our onions and our carrots with some salt and pepper, and then move on. And every time I'm going to add just a little bit of seasoning and build those flavors on top. So this is going to saute for about 5 to 7 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and add the rest of my vegetables. Okay, so now that our vegetables, our onions and carrots have sauteed for about 5 to 7 minutes, as you can see, they're starting to get translucent. They're got a little bit of color on them. That color is great because that's flavor. Then you take this and you're going to actually add your ground beef next. The reason we got to add ground beef next is because we got to cook that up. And our other vegetables that we're adding to our shepherd's pie today are cook really quickly, and so we don't need to saute those for a long time. So we're going to add our ground beef and right into the pan, and I'm going to break this up, and I'm going to cook this until it browns, until it's done. So the way you know that that's done is just there's no more pink left in your ground beef, and then after that I'm going to add the rest of our vegetables. Great, so our ground beef has now cooked, and now it's completely cooked and browned, as you can see right here, yay! And at this point, I can smell it. It smells so good. Those onions, the carrots, you could, so aromatic. The last thing we're going to do before we put this in the oven is we're going to put the rest of our veggies in here. We're going to add a little beef broth and some Worcestershire sauce for flavoring, and then we're going to make our mashed potatoes to go on top, and they're very quick and easy. This is also a great dish if you have leftover mashed potatoes. This is a great way to utilize your leftover mashed potatoes. I know sometimes when I make a meal and I have mashed potatoes, they don't reheat very well sometimes. They get kind of yellow, they taste kind of funny because of the starches, and so this is a great way to reutilize mashed potatoes. So in here I've got corn, I've got some tomatoes, and a little bit of diced up red onion that's really small that I had from a salad. I'm going to pop that right in here. And that tomato and beef go so well together. And the reason why is tomato has that same sort of savory flavor components as a beef. And so they go great in here. I'm going to add that in, and because those items are going to take no time at all to cook, I really am about done with this part. And as you can see, my pan is very full, and it's supposed to be, because we're going to put our mashed potatoes on top, and then we're going to put it in the oven, and it looks like a pie. That hence the name shepherd's pie. So a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. If you don't like Worcestershire sauce, you can use a little bit of soy sauce, and there's also a product out there called Yandu that doesn't have any fish in it, and it's a fermented soy product that you can get, and that also can be served on there if you don't want the Worcestershire or the soy sauce in here. If you don't like Worcestershire sauce and you don't want to keep this gluten friendly and keep the gluten out of here, use a tamari, which is just a soy sauce that doesn't have any wheat in it. So I'm going to mix this up because I've got my beef broth in here and my Worcestershire, and I want to make sure those flavors are all mixed up. Great. And I'm going to tip this a little so you can see how yummy this looks. As you can see, looks really, really good with all those lovely flavors, and it's going to continue to cook in the oven. So I'm going to leave that here, put it off to the side, turn my little burner off. We can move our burner over. Enter our potatoes. So here I have a bowl of cooked potatoes. I just pulled them out of the water, and I also have about 4 tablespoons of butter. What I did is I put the butter in my metal bowl next to my pot while the potatoes were cooking, and then that butter slowly melted. It's a great little shortcut. You don't have to worry about it cooling the potatoes down. Now I want to add a nice pinch of salt because these are just potatoes and butter. They're not going to have a ton of flavor without that salt. Salt is your flavor enhancer. It brings out the flavors of everything else in your dish. So especially when you're cooking basically from scratch like this, it's important to not be afraid to add some salt. And how much salt is enough salt? It's whatever your taste is. So be sure you're tasting throughout the process, making sure you have it. My potatoes are super, super soft, and that's what you want. In the recipe, it states to quarter the potatoes. You can do that. They'll just cook longer. Me, I chopped them into smaller pieces because I want to be able to make sure to mash them up really quickly. And you can do that. They're just going to cook for less time. That's all. So I just mash this with a whisk. Not everybody has a masher or a mixer in their house. You can use a whisk. You can use a fork. That will also work. And when it gets stuck, you just bop it on the side of your bowl. It'll come out. Don't be afraid to do some bopping. All right. So I'm mixing this up. And this is okay. You're making mashed potatoes. You're not making whipped potatoes. So it's okay if there's some chunks. Remember, it's going in a hot oven. And it will, flavor-wise, will taste really, really good, even with those little chunks, because they won't be hard at all once you put it on top. Okay, so the final step is I've got this. I'm gonna mix this up a little bit here like this, and then I take my potatoes and I kind of put them in a plop like this on top. And the reason I plop my potatoes in small amounts is because I want a nice coverage of potatoes on top of my shepherd's pie. Here we go. Just like this. And if it doesn't cover it absolutely completely, that's okay too. This is like your starch component. It's a whole meal in one pot. You've got your vegetables and your protein in the pie. Then you use the potatoes as a topping for it. You know, also would be really good on here is if you had some cornmeal and you made like a little leftover like grits or polenta. You could do that on top as well. That will bake a little differently. It'll get kind of crustier on top, but also would be absolutely delicious on top of this. You could also do like a biscuit dough and have biscuits on top of this that'll bake and create kind of a crust, and that also would be wonderful on top of this. There's all different ways that you could make this. A traditional cottage pie or shepherd's pie that we're making is always mashed potatoes, but if there's one thing I've learned in the world of culinary is if it tastes good, do it. So I've got my mashed potatoes on top like a crust, and now I'm going to put it in the oven and I'm going to let this bake for probably about 30 minutes until it's bubbly and I will be able to see it. It'll kind of be like bubbly on the outside. The top will get kind of a little bit golden brown because you've got the fat in the potatoes from the butter that'll help make it golden brown. And I'm just going to put that in the oven, and when it's done I'll pull it out and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so our shepherd's pie has been roasting in the oven for about 30 minutes, and we're going to pull it out and take a look at it and see if she's done. All right, look at that. Looks wonderful. As you can see, the top has got a little color on the top there. Looks really good. All our vegetables are cooked. Our beef is there. All the flavors have melded together. So for fun, we're gonna break into that. And if you want a little more color on your mashed potatoes and you have a setting on your stove, like a broiler setting, go ahead and do that. Broil the top, get some more crispies. There we go. Look at that. A lovely shepherd's pie, a nice meal for a cold night, something the whole family will enjoy.